So hello everybody and welcome to the place where we learn how to transform our sexuality, how to cultivate self-love, and how to activate our superpowers. And so I am thrilled to introduce Dr. Lorraine Brim. She is a doctor of human sexuality who is changing the conversations about sex. She is the author of 5 books, including The New Rules of Sex. I would love to hear about that one. And her work focuses on breaking down barriers to health, relationships, and pleasure by expanding our individual and cultural paradigm of sexuality. Welcome to the summit, Lauren. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah, sure. Changing the paradigm of our sexuality.
Yeah, small goal. No, it's a very large undertaking, a grand undertaking, but the most important because our sexuality is our life force and our power, and we need our voice back to be able to navigate sexual relationships and find pleasure and find happiness. And so, yeah, it's my life's work.
Yes. And tell me, what led you on this path? I'm curious.
Oh, where should I begin? I grew up very religious, so I was sort of given a box for my sexuality to live in, which was marriage. And so I struggled a lot with all that conditioning around sexuality and sin. And but I was a very sexual person. I had very sexual parents. I was aware of sexual energy. I masturbated a lot. So I wrestled a lot with how to be in relationship and how to be in the world. And then I trained to be a birth doula when I was 21, and I just happened to train with Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, who'd made the documentary Orgasmic Birth. And here I was watching women have orgasms and give birth. And I say that was the foreshadowing to the journey that I was going to go on. I would go to midwifery school, 8 years later, and then I would drop out, and I would realize that I wanted to have a conversation. At the time, it was just with women about sexuality, because I saw that nobody was having that conversation. You couldn't talk with your midwife. You couldn't talk with your gynecologist. You couldn't talk with your therapist. Women weren't talking with their partners of decades sometimes about their sexuality. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And there was so much myth, and nobody was talking about the relationship of emotions and sex. If a woman didn't want to have sex with her partner or her husband, or she had recurrent bacterial vaginosis where the bacteria is out of balance in the vagina, everyone would just be like, oh, well, you're just not that sexual, or, oh, take some probiotics. And no one was talking about sex. And I just knew very clearly this was my mission. And then in the process of doing my doctorate, I, for some reason, decided to do my thesis on male sexuality, looking at what men actually desired in sex through what they did with female sex workers. And then suddenly my phone starts ringing and I have men coming to me, and now here I am with what I call a mind-body sex coaching practice.
Right. And so what is the common thread of your clients, or is there any?
I would say that the common thread is everybody knows there's something more. If they have premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, they know there's more pleasure they could have themselves or for their partner. They know that it's not the fullest expression of themselves. Or if a woman has pain or inability to have an orgasm with a partner, she knows there's more and wants more. And some people, it's struggling with their sexual orientation or kink or just relationships in general, finding partners or how to navigate this modern world that we live in that has just changed so dramatically from the generation before. So it's really helping people figure out and find out what, they know that there's something more. And so I help them get there and let go of the baggage that they have to let go of to get there, which is the miseducation, the invalidation of their sexuality, the shame, the traumas that they don't even realize are traumas because we just sort of cover them up as a way of coping with them. And that's the work that I get to do.
Right. And statistically, every 1 out of 3 women has experienced direct sexual abuse, but there's also subtle abuses. And yeah, we mentioned before this conversation about even penetration before the woman is ready, or yeah, it doesn't even have to
Yeah.
be forced.
Yes. Exactly. I am familiar with this statistic as well, but I would argue that every single woman walking the planet, and most, I think probably every man too, has experienced some sort of forced sexuality on them, whether it was someone kissing you deeply that you didn't want, or someone fingering you, or touching your vulva, or touching your body in a way that you just had to, you were just at the mercy of. You didn't get a say in it. No one checked in with you. And men experience this all the time too. And it's been so covered up, as we see coming out all this stories with the Catholic Church and Boy Scouts. And I hear stories all the time in my practice about things that go on in the early years. And so we all have these experiences. And I think if we were raised as children to have a voice and to have our voice respected, I see in my daughter, she has such strong boundaries. I mean, nobody touches her, kisses her, anything without her. She knows what she wants. What she wants is respected and honored. And so I know her going out into the world, she's going to have a voice and say something. But most of us have had that shut down. And so in the moment, we can recover from, things are going to happen, but you react, you grab the hand, you say, hey, I don't like that, or that doesn't feel good, or I need you to check in with me, or, you have a voice. And so many of us, we just don't have this most basic thing that we need to navigate sexual relationships, because no one's going to be like able to read your mind, or, and we also want our partner to initiate. So how do we have a partner that initiates and not be victimized by their initiation as well? So most of us are missing that voice, and whether that's what created the unwanted sexual experience or what came out of the unwanted sexual experience.
Right. So a very vital step is to normalize conversations about sex, right? To bring it to the light, to educate, to normalize it rather than push it to the shadows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if we don't talk about it with each other, we freeze at the moment where we have to talk about it. And we see this a lot in the healthcare profession. Some of the doctors, like especially a gynecologist or even a therapist, if they're not talking about sex in their own life and with colleagues and with friends, they don't realize it, but they don't have the language. The other person doesn't pick up on any comfort coming from you. I mean, I'm so comfortable with sex and talking about it because of my own work, and that people will literally just walk up and they don't even know why, but they start telling me their entire sexual history. And then they go, God, I've never told anyone that I did that. When I was 5, I was like humping my friend, and, we had like sex in the back room, whatever. And I've never told anyone that. And I'm like, I know there's just so few safe places to talk about sex. And what is shocking is that, again, not even with partners do people feel safe to talk about sex. And it's a whole new paradigm. I mean, it's a paradigm when you can talk about what the sex dreams you had and what you thought about when you masturbated and what you fantasize about, and say, oh, that hurt my feelings. And, oh, I got strangely turned on by that. And when it's just this ongoing conversation, you get to live as a free sexual being in the world, and also let people know when they hurt you and what you need to be different. And yeah, we need to have language. We need to have vocabulary, conversations, education. Sex education is so important to be able to live our lives and navigate sex.
Right. The fact that we don't even have a proper word for our vulva, right? That's the closest you can get to include the entire landscape of this most amazing part of our being that actually brings life into the world and has so much pleasure, potential, and we don't even have a proper word in our society. Yeah,
I know. I made sure one of my proudest moments was when my daughter started saying vulva, and the fact that she knows vulva versus vagina, and teaching her, you know, this is your labia and this is your good, like, it's just, she's so comfortable with the terms, and she knows when I get my period. And, you know, it's just an ongoing conversation that we have with our children about sexuality. And yeah, it's so fun to see her just, you know, have no shame about it whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, I totally relate. I also have two daughters, and
Mm.
they completely comfortable with their bodies, and they know everything, and they watch me, and we're so comfortable about all the
Yeah.
parts in the body. So yeah, definitely there is a shift happening, and hopefully the next generation that will even flower into the innocence of sexuality. I feel that this is something that we really have to return into the innocence, into the
Mm-hmm.
playfulness, into the respect and appreciation of this powerful life force energy that is our creative energy that can bring in life, but also any other creative project into the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can feel when you talked about it in your opening, like I kind of got chills when you talk about, you know, the magic of it. And yeah, I mean, just what a powerful, beautiful energy. I was listening to a lecture by a professor talking about religion and sex this morning that someone sent me. And, you know, the question is always like, well, why did religion suppress sexuality, and especially all forms that weren't procreative, that didn't make babies? And you know, he goes in and just reiterates that when you suppress someone's sexuality, you suppress their power, you suppress their voice. They're gonna go, you know, be obedient, follow, and if they only have penis and vagina sex, and you know, they're gonna just make babies. And when you make babies, you grow nations, you grow the church, and someone gets to benefit from that power. And so yeah, we're completely relearning what sex is, and yeah, that intimate vulnerability and all the aspects of this energy that's so powerful and beautiful.
Right. It's tapping back into our superpowers, as I call it, in the subscription, right? In the introduction for this summit, because we do
Yeah.
have superpowers, and it's all connected. Our throat connected to our genitals, and we've been shut down for so many generations that we don't even know that we carry that complete shutdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I talk about this in the very opening of my first book, The New Rules of Sex. I start with the history of Western culture because, you know, a lot of people think that we're very sexually liberated and that everybody's out like having a pretty good experience of sex, and, you know, that we're fine. Like, oh no, everybody's fine and we're fine. And sometimes you can start to buy into the illusion of like, oh, we're fine. And then you start having conversations and realize like, oh, we are not fine. You know, we are not okay sexually. And look back just less than 100 years ago, less than 100, we were still circumcising women who would masturbate too much. We were burning off the clitoris with acid or cutting it. The fact that we still circumcise newborn babies is a result of the anti-masturbation movement of the Victorian era. I mean, we are coming out of still such a section where medical textbooks 100 years ago said a healthy woman had no sexual desire. So if you
Yeah.
had sexual desire, you were sick, something was wrong with you, you were mentally ill, a demon had possessed you. If you had a child with a disability, that was because you were sexual, because you had masturbated. That's why your baby has Down syndrome. I mean, sexually transmitted infections wouldn't even be treated in a hospital. They'd say that's God's punishment because you had sex. And like, this was how our parents, our grandparents are, you know, thought. And so we have those epigenetic memories in our bodies, and it's so deeply programmed, this fear and shame around the most powerful, beautiful parts of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what can you do that is actually actionable to break those barriers? What is your secret sauce?
I think the secret is, you know, I think we all need, because our culture and our grandparents and our parents and so many people have looked at us and said, you know, you're not sexual or they haven't seen our sexual being. I think it's so important to sit with someone who sees our sexual being and like opens that up. And I think some of us have experienced this with teachers in our life or coaches. I know that when I was in the first grade, I was struggling to learn to read, and I had this teacher that, you know, kind of came to me and whispered that I was really good at something, and she just kind of saw my potential and who I was under the fear that I had that I wasn't going to do it right. And then boom, it just opened up and I became this voracious reader. And I think we all need that for our sexuality. We need someone to see it, to go, oh, your sex is so beautiful. Like, I see who you are, and oh, you fantasize about that. Oh, that's really sexy. Or, oh, you've done this. And like, oh, a lot of people have had that experience. And just to like, through normalization and validation and seeing someone's sexuality, and we give permission to be ourselves, to be sexual. And then from there, you know, we have to go explore and reclaim. You know, if someone had taken your car or your property and you got it back, you know, you need to like own it again. You need to drive it around and look at it and touch it and reclaim it. And that's what we need to do with our genitals, our bodies, our fantasies. You know, what is it that turns me on? And when we uncover that, then, you know, we start to even attract partners who will have those conversations and who aren't afraid of who we are sexually and who are a sexual match. And I've really found this just even still in my journey, like finding people who I can be even more authentic, even more honest with about who I am sexually. And it's amazing.
Right. So for our audience, a big step forward is to look at your genitals, to actually take a mirror, have some great light, and check it out. Check it out in all stages, when it's before you turned on, while you turned on, when you really turned on. Look at how this amazing part of yourself expands and changes. Look at the colors, look at the smells, look at the uniqueness, beauty of it, and masturbate, 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 right?
That's the prescription that we all give to our clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of and preferably, I always say, you know, I'm not anti-porn, but I recommend masturbating without porn, without sex toys. Not that those things are bad, you can use them, but you also need to have a practice where you know, it's like that, those are the fast food of food. You also need to have some real nourishment, which is just your hands on your genitals and really exploring who you are sexually without, you know, all the little helpers.
Right. And for me, I found that fantasy has its place, but it takes me into my mind, where I'm really tapping into my body and I'm breathing and I'm sounding and I'm feeling all the very subtle sensations. I have a completely different, altogether experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big advocate of fantasy in the mind. I think some of the research I found really interesting is Barry Komisaruk, who's out of Rutgers University in New Jersey. And what he looks at is how the brain lights up with different types of orgasm. And the external orgasm, that's the short one that peaks really high, we light up in the outer part of the brain, the cortex brain, that does think and fantasize and create mental pictures and all of that. But as you sink into the deeper orgasms, that cortex brain doesn't light up. As you're having the internal clitoral or the vaginal orgasms and the cervical, you've got the limbic brain and the reptilian lighting up. And that's just that feeling place that you're talking about. And I think that is the place that so many women don't get to. Are those deeper places, and it's so healing. I mean, those are the orgasms where you feel the oneness, and where the mind does go away and you're in a state of meditation and you're in your primal sort of state or union. And yeah, those are definitely worth exploring and taking time, and it takes time to like really feel the subtle feelings, because so many of us are numb inside of our vaginas. The cervix is numb, and that wakes up by you just spending time breathing, making sounds, holding the breath, pushing back, you know, feeling, exploring, and then surrendering to it.
Yes, yes. I also found that that is the deepest connection that I feel with the divine. This is where I really tap into that life power. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's one way to really experience it, experience that oneness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'll never forget the first time that I was having sex, and I had been having sex for a long time. So I've gotten into these like deeper, just really deep states. And suddenly, there was no, there was no like time. There was no life and death. There was no beginning and ending. And I was just like, just crying from like bliss. I mean, there was just no, it was just everything was okay in the universe. And, here I was just engaging in like just sex, and it was really beautiful. It changed my life.
Yeah, yeah. And I know from my own experience with working with women that a lot of women they don't really experience pleasure or joy in penetration, and they kind of just let go of their sexuality. They push it away and they say, "Oh, I don't actually understand what's the big deal about it, and I can live my life without it." Do you find
Hmm.
that happens quite often?
Yeah, a lot of women, they're penetrated because they think, oh well, this is what I do for the man. I let him go inside of me. And sex is, and men do a lot of performance based sex too. I mean, I talk to men and they're not in a state of pleasure, and they're using all the Viagra and everything because it is a performance. They have no problem getting hard and when they're in a state where no one's pressuring them to perform and do sex for the woman. So I mean, we all have to break out of these concepts, but yeah, women. I mean, as soon as the vagina is entered, there's this incredible pleasure that's stimulated, and then right inside is the G spot, and there's incredible, and then you've got all the clitoral tissue that lights up around the whole vagina. I mean, it's supposed to feel amazing, and when it's time to be entered because the vagina literally pulls at the fingers, at the penis. It like wants to be entered, and you can feel that, and then the sensitivity keeps waking up. But yeah, women need to slow down, masturbate, feel that difference. I love to even show my partner when the vestibular bulbs of the clitoris are really engorged, and the periurethral sponge. I'm always like, get over here and feel this. Like, it's just like an erect penis. It's the exact same tissue. And it just never, I think in the same way that men never get tired of their erections, like, hey, look at this. I'm like, I never get tired of my erections. I'm like, oh, look how, full I am. Like, it's, like you look like how turned on I am by you, and like how much fullness I can hold in me. And so I think, yeah, women need to hear about that. They need to know it's possible. Permission, again, needs to be given. I know it was women telling me, I had a friend told me how she squirted during sex. I had no idea what that was. And, I talk about that in my book too, The New Rules of Sex. I was like, I want to experience that. And because I knew it was possible, I found my way there through just continuing to explore. So this is possible for every woman. And you just have to decide you want to have every pleasure there is possible in life, and go find it.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your steps to find that Amrita squirting.
Oh yeah. So for me, what I found was that the way I had been having sex would be I'd have my first external clitoral orgasm, and then if I kept having sex with my partner, I would get this sensation like I had to pee, and I would say I have to pee, and I'd jump off and run to the bathroom, and then I'd run back and I'd keep having sex. And so when I learned about Amrita and squirting, I'm trying to remember if I'd read Women's Anatomy of Arousal yet or not, but I was starting to explore that, this was a thing, even though I was listening to lectures, even through my graduate program, saying there is no female ejaculation. I mean, crazy. So I peed before masturbating to make sure that there was no urine, and then had that first orgasm, which then after the first orgasm, you get very full, and then just right inside the vagina, I find in some women it's just right at the surface, it's not even that deep inside. You'll find the periurethral sponge, and I stimulated it, and then I felt that urge to pee, but instead of peeing, I sort of pushed back against the finger or the dildo or the penis, and then I felt that release. And then it was very affirming to see, oh, this isn't urine. You know, this doesn't smell like urine. It's very sweet. It's clear. It doesn't stain the bed. And then I just kept, the first was like, blink. It was just this tiny little amount. And I was like, I did it. And then, you experience so much of it that you're like, whoa, okay, this is like there's going to be nowhere to sleep if we don't stop this or move to the shower or something. So it's amazing to know that it's there. Sometimes I can feel it's coming, but I choose not to do that because I just don't want that for that experience. But sometimes it's uncontrollable, and it's an amazing feeling, and partners love it. And it's just another way that you just let yourself be human and let, I don't know, this energy flow that's really powerful. So.
Right. And I've heard that they call it the auxiliary of life, right? That's something.
The elixir, yeah.
Elixir.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I also read many years ago a book, actually, I happen to have it right here. The Sexual Teachings of the White Tigress. And I read this many years ago, and they're all about the fluids, and how they also believe semen is, they talk about rubbing it all over their bodies, and using sexuality to stay young and to nourish us, and to, the fluids that come out of both sexes, and how we use sex and how we engage in it. And it was really, I read this many years ago, and it really impacted me as well. Like, oh, sexuality, again, it's life-giving. And I talk about this in my book, The New Rules, too, that we have all this fear of disease, and that, sex is going to take away our life force, but sex is not that dangerous. I mean, yes, there are some infections, but you can get an infection, going to the hospital. You get MRSA, or you get on an airplane. If your immune system's weak, you can get infections in lots of different places, and it's not so scary. And the life-giving benefits, and the anti-aging and reducing heart disease and all the things, the boosting of the immune system that sex does, it's like, this is the best medicine out there. Why aren't we taking advantage of it?
Right. Even science confirming that sexuality is vital for a healthy being. So there we go. Our natural birthright for health and vitality right there.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to include penetration. It could be naked cuddling is like, to me, that's sex, and feeling those feelings in your body. And we know that 20 seconds of deep hugging releases oxytocin and gives you a lot of the benefits as well. So yeah, it can be whatever form feels right to you, but allowing that sexual energy to move and express itself is key.
Right. And even through our creativity, I feel that when I dance and when I sing and when I paint, I completely run sexual energy through my body. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you don't
definitely
have to have a partner to explore your sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the men's side, what is the common thread in your men clients? That's very interesting to see, the other gender.
Love to talk about this. So we have this narrative about men, right? That they're hard. They want sex all the time. They want to just stick it in as many women as possible and come, and they don't really care. And this is not true. Men care deeply about the women they're with being satisfied and having pleasure. If they had to choose between them having an orgasm and the woman having an orgasm, they would choose the woman every time. They feel so good about themselves when they give a woman pleasure, which is a shame that women are, holding back their pleasure and inhibited, and not because this is what they really long for. And they want to feel connected. Men that have sex with sex workers and or a dominatrix or an escort, yeah, they're not able to express their sexuality in their relationships. That's why they go somewhere else, because some part of who they are sexually is not welcome in their current relationship or life, and they go elsewhere. But they don't love that because they want to feel connected. And so we always say, oh, women want to feel connected and we want to cuddle. Men want to feel connected and cuddle too. And, you know, of course, there's situations where, you know, sometimes women don't, sometimes men don't. But in general, men want to give women pleasure. They want to feel connected. And, you know, they want to be seen, you know, for who they are as sexual beings. So.
Right. So yeah, it's about healing the feminine and the masculine in this beautiful dance that we dancing together. I've heard something really beautiful that that men bring their energy from down up to the heart. That's their journey, and women bring their energy from the heart down to their vulvas and genitals, and that's how we circulate the energy and meet together.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's one of the big connections I always look at is the genital, like the genital and the dantian, sort of the pelvic heart, and the heart in the chest heart. And, you know, and this, you know, this brain, like you have all these brains, and but this connection is so powerful. But when they all can line up and they can all express like the ideas and the words and the emotion and the primal sexual energy, and they're all in harmony together, you get amazing sex, amazing relationship connection, and great health too.
Right. I almost want to say that this will completely heal the planet if we manage to heal our individual sexuality and the way that we relate to each other. I feel that all the other problems in the world will dissipate. You know, it feels like the essence of the state of the planet at the moment is really mutated sexuality. Our life force energy was wired up with so much, as you said, shame and guilt and hiding, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
really gonna change the
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Well, we see in the generation of teenagers and college age kids now that they're the most tolerant of any prior generation. And they're growing up in a time where, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that being gay was considered a mental illness in the diagnostic manual, that it was illegal to be gay, that it was illegal to practice oral sex with a heterosexual, you know, with your husband or wife, that you know, legislation controlled our sexuality so much. And, you know, this is why so many gay men went to be priests and got into, because you had an option, marry a woman, which is a completely inauthentic experience for you. And some men did, and they, you know, had children, and then eventually were like, this is not who I am, I have to divorce. But so many men just went, oh, my sexuality is bad, let me suppress it. And then of course, it comes out, because it's like you can't stop life from, you know, you can't stop everything living. It just keeps growing and moving upwards and outwards. So yeah, I believe that we are going to see things we've never seen before, because people are free now to, you know, you don't just have to get married and have babies, and you get to, you know, we see the trans movement, and the whole world is just really changing, and there's still so much work to do. But the fact that people are being given permission and vocabulary to talk about sex, and summits like this, and, you know, yeah, I really believe it's so powerful to heal the planet, because one of the most damaging things is the sexual abuse that comes out of sexual repression, and how that limits not just someone's sexuality, but their voice, their power, their ability to mother their children, and, you know, just it creates generations of trauma.
Right. And I feel that molestation in childhood is such an epidemic because children are naturally wired for pleasure, and they don't have that cross that we carry as adults, that we've been already educated through our teenage years, and everything that we grasp and you know, received from society. And so they are so easy to groom in that way, you know, because their body just naturally responds to pleasure and affection and touch and all of that. And that's why I think it's such an epidemic, because they're such easy target to get that sexual energy going, right?
Yeah, and ideally, children would be born to two sexually awakened beings who could guide them, and they would be around sexuality and practicing consent and boundaries and seeing sex. But I have some friends who grew up in Spain, and it was never a secret that their parents, for the siesta, when their father would come home in the afternoon, they'd have lunch and then everyone would go take a nap, but they knew their parents were having sex and they'd listen. And sex is just this like playful, natural part of life. It was no secret, and the parents were always knew who the girls were dating, when they were having sex, like everything was just talked about. And they have such a different relationship to sexuality and their creativity and who they are in the world, and both really happy people. And yeah, I mean, but unfortunately we don't get parents like that, most of us. And my parents were, I say, one of the greatest gifts I got in my life was that my parents had done some work on themselves. And so I remember my mother saying, you can masturbate, and masturbation is a great thing. And but there was so much still unspoken shame around it. I wasn't given any menstrual products. I wasn't, talked to about. I was shamed for even liking men, which, boys are dating. So that kept me really hidden away. And so, yeah, there's unfortunately, we need more self-actualized, sexually conscious adults in the world to guide children and the next generations. Because yeah, their sexual energy is right there. I always tell everyone, children masturbate in the womb. They come out, and what's the first thing you do to a baby? You're just touching its anus and genitals 3, 4, 6 times a day, changing diapers. Like, life literally set it up that we would be continually stimulated in our pudendal nerve, our sexual center, because it's that life animating energy. And yeah, so hopefully we can, if you didn't get good parenting in that realm, again, summits like this and people, you can sort of like adopt like someone like you and say, okay, this is going to be the person who's going to mirror my sexuality, as opposed to the person who has a lot of shame or that distorted sexuality that maybe you were raised with.
Right. Because it's really important to have a safe space to talk about it and to share and explore, and somebody that can sit there and, as you said, mirror back that it's okay. However you fantasize, whatever you feel, whatever your current relationship to your sexuality, it's all okay, it's all acceptable. And there's so much more that you can call into your life, and that is your birthright, and it's never too late. I keep saying that because it's really never too late. Whatever age you are, you can still tap into that incredible space of pleasure and fulfillment and joy and bliss and ecstasy, and all of that is yours.
Yeah, you're right. There's also a lot of cultural stories that women become less sexual after menopause, and men, lose it as they age. And you talk to so many people that have beautiful, amazing sex lives that are better than, post menopause or menopause, as I call it. So yeah, it's never too late to explore, and all the science shows that. And just because our hormones change, our sexuality is so much bigger than our hormones, and the latest research shows that. So it's really about your mindset, and that affects everything. Yeah.
Right. So it's first mindset. Sometimes you do need to balance some of your hormones. So it's good to get and receive some professional help regarding that if you feel that something is imbalanced. But it's all fixable. It's all curable.
Yeah.
And
no one's broke.
No one is broken. No one is broken. And even if you're in a long-term relationship, I've been in a relationship for 23 years, and we managed to ignite it again and again and again. And so even with one partner that you feel that, you know, I've heard a lot of women saying, "Oh, I've been with my partner for so long, we don't do sex anymore," and that's just very painful statement. So
yeah, I agree.
yeah, and what would be your best advice on taking it, stepping to the fullness of sexuality? How, say, a woman that knows, longing to experience more, because I'm sure that that's the kind of woman that will come into this summit, and
Yeah,
they don't know where to start. They don't have that maybe first-hand experience of everything that we talked about that is possible, and they want to explore it. They want to feel it. What
right.
can they do?
Yeah. Well, two thoughts come to mind. So the first is you have to make peace with your body, because the body is this vehicle for sexuality. And I so often hear that women that struggle with sex, they almost always really struggle with their bodies. And I've seen women with gorgeous bodies that you think, oh no, she doesn't. Oh, she does. She does. Her breasts aren't okay, and her butt's not okay, and her thighs aren't okay, and her vulva's not okay, though she hasn't really looked at it. And nothing about her is okay and lovable. How are you going to have any pleasure with sex? You've got to really enjoy this. And as we become aroused, our bodies get even more beautiful. The breasts kind of fill out, and everything just And I tell women too, it's okay to also do things that make you feel sexy. If you feel more comfortable having sex in a t-shirt for a while, do that. And because it's about you being able to feel sexy and feel good. And if you look in the mirror and you don't like your body, find something you like. If it's like the color of your nipples, or the way you look with makeup on, or something you buy or do for yourself that makes you feel good. Because we have to show up for sex, and it is cultivating self-love. And I always compare, masturbation, the reason it's so powerful, and sex as well, but especially masturbation, is we secrete all this oxytocin with orgasm. And when we give birth, we secrete all this oxytocin, so we fall in love with this sort of strange little creature that we push out of our vagina. And we're like, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And that's what happens with ourselves when we masturbate and experience oxytocin. It's like, oh my God, I love this person that I am and this body that I have. So I think that is really key. And if you need to get help with that, get help with that. And then just you got to get re-educated, because you can't walk around with the old owner's manual of sex and try to have a new experience. So, watch summits like this. They're amazing. Get your hands on all the books you can about sex that are going to re-educate you. And then you can go out and with this new operating manual and have a different experience.
Wow, that's so beautifully said. Thank you so much. It's really key to love the body you are showing up in this life. This is your temple, and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, no matter what is the size of your hips or how much cellulite you have or anything else. And it's really about the conversations that you have with yourself when you look in the mirror. Just bring awareness and consciousness to what are you saying to yourself, and see if you can change that conversation into a positive one, into an inspiring one, and really create that new relationship with yourself, and advocate pleasure, invite pleasure in every possible way that fits you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you for that, because the more pleasure you experience, the more pleasure you can receive. You expanding your capacity to contain pleasure, the more pleasure you receive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's no right and wrong. So, if drinking coffee is your ultimate pleasure, by all means do that. If
Mm-hmm.
whatever works for you, you know what brings you pleasure, and just do more of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Right. So we are coming to the end of this beautiful conversation, and it's been really, I gained so much from it. So really, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Yeah.
I also know that you have a beautiful gift that you offer in our audience. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can tell us
Yeah,
what it is.
intimacy meditation. It takes you a bit more into the inner relationships we have that came from how we related to our mother and our father, and how we relate to ourself and our masculine femininity and our bodies, our genitals, just taking you on a journey with that, so that our inner journey is always reflected outside of us. So it's I think it's about 45 minutes long, and can listen to that.
Wow, that's a very important point right there. Our sexuality is so shaped by what we absorbed from our mother, the feminine, and our father, the masculine, and what we carry. And we really do need to clear that residue
Yeah,
that we carry. So
yeah, just the
yeah,
don't serve, for sure, from both sides. Yeah.
right. And especially if we want to bring in healthy, intimate relationship with another human being,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if people want to contact you to work with you personally or get hold of your beautiful
Yeah.
content.
Thank you. Yeah, I have lots of free content on YouTube and on my website, laurenbrim.com. And I sell all my books. I've got a book called Women Who Love Sex. I have a book called Your Boyfriend's Hooker, all about stories of men with what they want with sex. I wrote The New Rules of Sex. I have a workbook that goes with that. So lots of different materials to help others with what helped me to get free and have a great sex life.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So definitely go check her website, and you can press on the button below to download this beautiful free meditation. And yeah, there you go. So much resource for your sexual transformation journey right there. Thank you so much, Lorraine. I really appreciate our time together, and blessings on your journey.
Thank you.
And yeah, until the next time. Ciao for now.